Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Nightfall Terrors. I know many of you enjoy using these videos to help you fall asleep, so before you start to drift off, it would be great if you could leave a comment sharing where you're listening from around the world. If you're enjoying the episodes, don't forget to like and subscribe as well. Now, let's get cozy, settle in, and begin. I used to be a long-haul trucker. One night I pulled over for a lost kid on a deserted highway. What I saw with him and what he asked me is why I don't drive anymore. This happened a few years ago when I was regularly hauling long cross-country routes, the kind where you pass through endless empty stretches, radio dead zones, no towns for hours, and only the occasional set of headlights in the opposite lane. I was young then, chasing miles and money. I thought I didn't mind the isolation. I was wrong. That particular trip took me across a long, remote section of highway that sat between two major government regions. I won't say where exactly, but think wide open land, dense woods, and not much else. The road had a reputation. Drivers called it a dead zone. No cell coverage, no nearby towns for at least 100 miles in either direction, and unpredictable weather. Most drivers tried to get through it during the day, but I was on a night run, couldn't help it. I remember how it felt. The darkness outside was total, broken only by the reach of my headlights. It pressed in like a physical thing. The only sounds were the steady hum of the engine, the occasional hiss of the air brakes, and the repetitive thump of tires on pavement. It was almost hypnotic. Too much so, I'd been driving about 10 hours, with only one short break a few states earlier. My coffee had long worn off. The dashboard glowed a soft green, oddly comforting. But it made the blackness outside feel even deeper. My eyelids were heavy. You fight it, slapping your face, rolling the window down for cold air, cranking up the radio to whatever music hasn't fizzled into static. I was doing all of that. It must have been 2 or 3 a.m. That strange time when you're not fully awake, but not asleep either. Your brain's operating in low gear. The road markings started to blur and stretch. Classic fatigue. I remember blinking hard, trying to stay focused. Then I saw something. It was just a flicker at the far edge of my headlights on the right shoulder, low to the ground. Human-shaped maybe. Then it vanished, swallowed by darkness as I passed. My first thought was deer, maybe a coyote, common out there. But it hadn't moved like an animal. It stood upright. My tired mind tried to make sense of it. Too small for an adult, too still for wildlife. Then the logical part of my brain jumped in. You're tired. You imagined it. Happens all the time. And I nearly believed that. Took a drink of lukewarm water, eyes back on the road. But the image wouldn't let go. A small, upright figure, like a child. No way, I thought. Not out here. In the middle of nowhere, at 3 in the morning. It had to be a trick of the light. A bush, a shadow. I'd seen stranger things after long shifts. Trees that looked like people, headlights that shimmered into patterns. Comes with the job when you're running on fumes. I drove for another 30 seconds or so. The image started to fade from my mind. Just my brain playing games. Then I glanced in my passenger side mirror, out of habit. That's when my blood froze. There, faintly lit by the glow of my trailer's rear lights, was the outline of a small figure, still standing on the shoulder, exactly where I'd seen it. Not a bush, not a shadow, definitely a person, small, motionless, watching the truck disappear. My pulse kicked into overdrive. This wasn't a hallucination. There was someone or something back there, and it looked like a child. Every instinct told me, don't stop. Get out of here. But another thought crept in. What if it was a kid? Alone? Injured? I wrestled with myself for a few seconds. That felt like forever. The figure in the mirror was getting smaller. If I didn't turn around, it'd vanish into the dark. Against all my instincts, I made the call. I slowed the truck. The air brakes let out a long hiss. I pulled over onto the shoulder, hazard lights blinking into the darkness. Then I did what you're not supposed to do with a loaded trailer on a narrow stretch. I reversed, slowly, cautiously, checking mirrors constantly, trying to keep the trailer straight and locate that figure again. The sound of the gravel crunching under the tires felt far too loud. After what felt like an eternity, the red glow from my tail lights landed on the spot again. There was a kid. I brought the truck to a stop, the cab about 10 feet from where they stood, switched on the high beams to get a better look, and to make it clear that I was just a truck. The child was small, maybe 6 or 7 years old. It was hard to tell in the harsh light. They were standing at the very edge of the gravel, right where the woods began. Tall pine trees and thick brush loomed just beyond the headlights, forming a wall of darkness. The kid wasn't looking at me. They were walking slowly, parallel to the road, as if unaware that an 18-wheeler had pulled up next to them. They wore thin, light-colored pajamas. No jacket. No shoes, as far as I could tell. My gut told me this wasn't right. Something felt off. I cut the engine. Silence hit hard, broken only by the faint sounds of insects and the rustling trees. I rolled down the window. The air was cold and damp, full of pine and earth. "Hey," I called out, voice louder than I expected in the quiet. "Hey, kid." No response. They just kept walking, bare feet padding gently on the gravel, head down. I couldn't see their face clearly. "Kid, are you all right?" I tried again, louder. Finally, the child paused. They didn't fully turn, just tilted their heads slightly. I caught a glimpse of a pale cheek in the light. Still not looking at me. Still not reacting like a normal child would. A chill ran through me, not the normal kind. This was something else. A lost kid should be scared, or at least curious. This one showed nothing. "What are you doing out here by yourself?" I asked, softening my tone like you would with a frightened child. But this one didn't seem afraid. At all. "It's really late." Silence. Just the soft scuff of feet on gravel as they took another slow step. As if I wasn't even there. That internal alarm was now a siren. I hovered my hand near the gear shift, part of me ready to leave. But what if the kid was in shock? I couldn't just abandon them. Could I? "Where are your parents?" I asked, a bit sharper. "Are you lost?" At that, the kid finally stopped. They turned their head more, not towards me, more toward the front of the truck, where the lights were brightest. I could see more of their face now. Pale, smooth, unreadable. Eyes were just dark smudges in the glare. No emotion, no fear, no sadness, no relief. Just a blank look. Then they spoke. A small, dry voice, like wind in dead leaves. "Lost. That single word hung in the air. I felt a flicker of relief, followed by deeper concern. Lost. Okay, that's something. I could work with that. All right, that's okay. We can handle lost. Where's home? Where were you heading? The child slowly turned their head toward me. I still couldn't see much detail. The light and shadows worked against me, but I felt their gaze. It was heavy. Not like a kid's at all. It carried weight, something too intense for such a tiny figure. Home, they said in that same soft voice. Trying to get home. Okay, home. Where's home? I leaned forward, slightly, trying to sound calm and reassuring. Is it nearby? Did you walk away from somewhere, like a campsite or a car? I knew there was nothing like that for miles. No breakdowns, no signs of other people. The child didn't answer. Instead, they took a step toward the truck. Then, another. My hand gripped the door handle, unsure. Was I really going to offer a ride? Shelter? I had no idea. It's cold, I said. You can come inside. We'll warm up, and once I've got signal, I'll call for help. My CB was dead, and my phone had shown no service for over an hour. The kid stopped about 5 feet from my passenger door, still wearing that pale, flimsy pajama-like outfit. Barefoot, standing on sharp gravel. They should have been shivering or crying, but they weren't. Can you help me? They asked. The voice was still quiet, but there was a subtle shift now. It wasn't so flat. There was a tone, perhaps pleading. Yeah, of course I can help, I replied. That's why I pulled over. Where are your parents? How did you end up out here? The kid tilted their head, a quick, unnatural motion. They're waiting. At home. All right. Where's home? Which direction? I gestured vaguely up and down the deserted highway. They didn't point down the road, just gave a slight nod with their head toward the trees, toward the thick, dark woods lining the shoulder. In there, the kid said. A knot formed in my stomach. In the woods. Your house is in there. Lost, the kid replied. Like that explained everything. Trying to find the path. It's dark. Yeah, it's very dark, I agreed, glancing toward the tree line. It looked impenetrable. No sign of any trail or shelter. Just dense, old forest. The kind where you could vanish for days, even in broad daylight. Can you come out? They asked. Help me look. It's not far. I can't see it from here. Every instinct screamed no. Get out of the truck. Out here, in total darkness, with this strange child who wanted me to follow them into the woods. Absolutely not. But they looked so small, so helpless. If there was even a slim chance they were being truthful, that their home was nearby, and they were just lost. I don't think that's a good idea, buddy, I said, trying to sound calm. It's dangerous out there at night. For both of us. Best thing is you get in with me. We'll drive until I have a signal, then I'll call the police or the rangers. They can help you find your way back properly. The kid didn't move. Their expression stayed blank, unreadable. But it's right there, they said, more insistent now. Just a little way. I can almost see it. If you just step out, your door light would help. My skin crawled. Something was off. The way they were coaxing me. The absence of normal emotions. The outfit. The bare feet. The forest. I looked harder at the kid. trying to see past that weird vagueness around them. My headlights were bright, but the light didn't seem to hit them right. Their eyes, I still couldn't see their eyes, just dark hollows. I really think you should get in the truck, I said more firmly. It's warmer in here. We'll figure this out together. They stepped closer, almost at my running board now. Please, they said again. That thin voice. My leg hurts. I can't walk much farther. If you could just help me. Just to the path. I was torn. My instincts, sharpened from years of hearing strange stories and seeing odd things on the road, were screaming warnings, but the human part of me, the part that saw a child in need, wasn't silent either. I was exhausted. Maybe I wasn't thinking clearly. Maybe this was just a strange misunderstanding. I squinted, trying to see past the kid into the forest. Was there a path I missed? A light deeper in? No, nothing. Just unbroken darkness. And then I saw it. Not clearly at first. It was more like a distortion, a subtle irregularity in the darkness behind them. The kid had their back mostly to the woods, facing me. Behind them, the darkness should have been complete. But something was connected to them, something stretching from the small of their back, beneath the pajama top, vanishing into the shadows. I thought it might be a trick of the light, a shadow or maybe a rope, something tangled on a branch. I leaned forward, trying to see better. The kid was still speaking, their voice a quiet, persistent murmur. It's not far. Please. I'm so cold. But I wasn't focused on the words anymore. I was staring at that thing behind them. It wasn't a rope or a shadow. It was a tube. A long, thick, dark tube. It extended from the base of their back seamlessly and slithered into the forest. It was matte, like a solid strip of night made physical, snaking perhaps 15 feet before disappearing between the pines. It moved slightly, with a sluggish organic flex, like a massive umbilical cord made of darkness. It didn't reflect my headlights. It just absorbed them. My breath caught, my blood, already cold, felt like it turned to ice. This wasn't just strange. It was unnatural. The kid kept coaxing. Are you going to help me? It's just there. You're so close. When I finally found my voice, it was barely audible. My gaze locked on that horrible connection stretching into the woods. Kid, what is that? Behind you. They flinched. Just a small, almost unnoticeable movement. Their head, which had been tilted pleadingly, straightened. Their expression hardened. What's what? They asked. The pleading tone was gone. Their voice flat again. Colder. That thing, I said, trembling, pointing, coming out of your back, going into the trees. What is that? They didn't look. They didn't need to. Their eyes, those dark voids, locked onto me. It's nothing, they said. The voice was sharper now. You're just tired. You're imagining things. They were repeating what I thought earlier. No, I replied, a tremble of fear giving strength to my words. No, I'm not. I see it. It's real. It's connected to you. Silence. Nothing but my pounding heart. The insects had stopped. The wind had stilled. The world held its breath. Then, the kid's face began to change. Slowly, subtly. The blankness didn't vanish. It sharpened. Their pale skin drew tighter, the dark hollows of their eyes deepened, and something ancient flickered across their features. Not human rage, something older, colder, and deeply patient. The air inside my cab grew heavy, hard to breathe. "Just come out of the truck," they said. And the voice, it wasn't a child's anymore. It was deep, resonant, with a grating undertone like grinding stones. It came from that small form, but it was impossibly fast, timeless. "Come out, now." It was a command. My hand, which had hovered near the gear stick, now gripped it tight. My other hand fumbled for the key I'd foolishly left in the ignition. "What are you?" I asked, my voice cracking as I stared at the monstrous thing wearing a child's shape, at the tube that anchored it to the shadows. They tilted their head again, that same jerky movement. Their face twisted in something close to disgust, contempt, like I was a nuisance. And then it spoke again, that same terrible voice. The words it said are etched into my memory, colder than anything I've ever known. "Why?" it rasped, the sound scraping against my mind. "The fuck are humans smarter?" Now, that was it. One line, full of frustration and implication. It had done this before. We'd been easier prey. I didn't think. I reacted. Pure animal panic took over. I twisted the key. The diesel engine roared to life, shattering the silence. The kid, or whatever it was, recoiled slightly. That awful expression tightened further. I slammed the truck into drive, hit the gas. Tires spun before catching traction. I didn't look back. I couldn't. My hands locked on the wheels, staring straight ahead, the cab shuddering with every bounce. The truck accelerated, slowly, too slowly. For one awful second, I imagined that tube whipping out to snag the rig, pulling me back. I imagined that thing, running beside me, easily keeping pace. I dared a glance in the side mirror. It was still there, standing on the shoulder, unmoving. My headlights caught its silhouette, and the tube, still trailing back into the trees, was clearly visible. It didn't retract, just remained. It didn't follow, it just watched. And somehow, that was worse. The patience, the certainty, like it knew others would come, or was simply annoyed that this time it failed. I kept driving. I don't know for how long. My foot stayed on the floor. The engine screamed. I watched the speedometer needle climb well past any safe limit. I didn't care. That image of a child-shaped thing with a shadow tethered to the forest was burned behind my eyelids. I must have driven for an hour, maybe more, before the adrenaline faded, replaced by a shaking exhaustion. My hands trembled so badly I could barely steer. Tears streamed down my face, not from grief, but from sheer, overwhelming fear and relief. As the first gray light crept into the sky, and my phone finally lit up with a weak signal, I pulled into a wide turnout, fell out of the cab, vomiting onto the gravel until nothing was left. I sat there, shivering, watching the sun rise, trying to convince myself it hadn't happened. But I knew it had. The detail, the voice, the words. You don't hallucinate something that specific, that coherent, that alien. I never reported it. Who would believe me? "Officer, I saw a kid that was actually some ancient creature plugged into the forest by a nightmare tether, and it got mad when I didn't follow it in. They'd think I was crazy, probably test me, lock me up. I finished the delivery in a daze, returned the truck to the yard, and I quit. Said I was burned out, needed time off. They tried to keep me, offered different routes, more money. I couldn't do it. Every shadowed highway felt dangerous. I found a local job, one that keeps me close to home, off dark, empty roads, especially at night. The nightmares haven't stopped, and sometimes, when I'm tired and driving home late, I'll catch something at the edge of my vision, and my heart nearly gives out. I don't know what it was, an alien, a demon, something beyond our understanding. All I know is it's out there, and it's waiting, and it's learned we're not as easy as we used to be. Why the fuck are humans smarter now? That question follows me. It suggests we weren't always. That once people like me might have stepped out without hesitation and never returned. So if you're ever on a long, empty stretch of road, late at night, and you see something you can't explain, maybe just keep driving. Maybe being smarter now means knowing when not to stop, knowing that sometimes what looks like a child asking for help isn't. Stay safe and stay on the lit roads. How I met Milou. I was born a burden. My parents said it jokingly, but I always knew they meant it on some level. Even as a baby, I had bronchiolitis, overly sensitive skin, and frequent infections. My mom used to say it was like God had given up on me and handed the responsibility over to them. He must have had enough, she'd half laugh. I was the sick kid in a family full of healthy ones. I had 3 older brothers and 2 younger sisters. Each illness that went away was replaced by a new one. Bronchiolitis became asthma. Infections turned into allergies. Sensitive skin became eczema. Throw in intense migraines, poor eyesight, and constant motion sickness. That was me at 8 years old. We lived near a vineyard. If you head east from Toulouse, past Gaillac and Albi, there's a long road through the thin forest that opens into the colorful hills of southern France. Most people hear French wine and think champagne, but there's so much more. My dad used to say that before France was a country, it was a land of wine. While we didn't live on the vineyard, it belonged to our family. My father had worked those fields since he was a child, and my brothers and I were expected to do the same. So were my sisters, but in different roles. But forget the movie version, with berets and baguettes in bicycle baskets. This was serious labor. We dealt with chemicals, machines, inspections, quality control. Traditions had to meet modern demands. So when I say it was hard work, I mean hauling gear, doing paperwork, loading trucks, attending supplier meetings, filing taxes, and hitting production targets. I couldn't really help, though I wanted to. My breathing couldn't keep up, and I couldn't lift much without getting lightheaded. Looking at screens gave me migraines. My mom had to wash my clothes separately so my skin wouldn't react to fabric softener. I needed special shampoo, and even my zippers and buttons had to be custom, thanks to a nickel allergy. And wouldn't you know, nickels in nearly all of them. But I could have handled all of that if it weren't for the fur allergy. All my siblings wanted a pet, but I couldn't be near one. Just being in a friend's house with a cat could trigger a reaction. Sometimes I had to stay in the car while others went shopping, in case there was a dog nearby. I had medication, but it made me groggy and nauseous, awful on long drives. I remember once when my brother Maurice snapped. He was 5 years older and deep into his teenage years. We were having dinner, and I reacted to something in the soup. My parents argued whether it was the tomatoes or spring onions. My mom had aired out the house earlier, so maybe it was pollen. Maurice had enough. Every day, he yelled. Every single day it's something else. Why do we even keep him alive? My mom scolded him, but he didn't care. We'd be better off without you, he said. We could do anything, go anywhere, but now we're stuck. He stormed upstairs, shouting, I'd rather have a dog than you for a brother. The worst part, he wasn't entirely wrong. He just said what no one else would. That night I went into the woods. I had taken one of my allergy pills so I wouldn't react to the plants, but the side effects made my legs heavy. My pockets were full of meds, just the basics for leaving the house. I had this idea. I'd find Morris a dog. It was a dumb plan, but I really wanted to make things right. Of course, there weren't stray dogs wandering the countryside, but I didn't think it through. I just didn't want to feel like a burden anymore. I wandered for hours, calling out, hoping something would find me. I wanted to bring something back, to do something good. It got too dark to keep going, so I turned back, disappointed. I'd only embarrassed myself again. Then I heard a splash. The afternoon rain had left puddles, and something small was moving in one of them. Maybe a frog. I knelt in the mud. Sorry about the jeans, Mom. I reached out and felt something brush my finger. I pulled back. Sorry, I whispered. I don't want to hurt you. I reached again, slowly. Whatever it was small, maybe the size of my thumb. Not a frog, but just as slippery. I held my hand out flat, inviting it. What are you? I asked. You're not a frog. It crawled into my hand and stayed still. I lifted it to my face. Something black, with a ridge down its back. You wanna come with me? I offered. Or you can stay. Your call. I set my hand down again, but it didn't move. I smiled. That was probably the first time anything chose to stay with me. It was late, and my parents were out looking for me. I ran to one of the storerooms and grabbed a jar. I filled it with rainwater and gently placed the creature inside. I left the lid open, just in case it wanted to leave. I apologized and promised I'd be back in the morning. I hid the jar behind the house, near a pile of leaves. Naturally, my parents were furious, but mostly scared. Morris got in big trouble, which only made things worse. Now I'd made him suffer for something he said in anger. I was probably going to get hit. That night I lay awake, imagining what I'd found. Maybe it was a frog. A cool, black, punk-looking frog. The next morning I rushed outside. The creature was curled at the bottom of the jar, barely covered by the water. I hadn't filled it enough. Maybe it was a fish. I stood there in my flip-flops and pajama pants. The fog was lifting as the sun rose. My hands were cold as I refilled the jar with the garden hose and brought it close to my face. It was about the size of a middle finger, dark as coal. I could see its spiny ridge clearly, but I still couldn't tell what it was. It had a fish-like head and a snake-like body, with gills and trailing tendrils. As soon as I topped off the water, it sprang to life, spinning and twisting like it was dancing. Then it looked at me with flat, dark eyes. I'll call you Milou, I said, grinning. We're gonna be best friends. Yeah, I was a Tintin kid. I decided to keep Milou secret. Morris was still bitter from getting in trouble, and I didn't want to give him any reason to mess with me. I'd never had a pet, and probably never would again, so I kept Milou hidden. I fed him grapes from the vineyard, bugs, scraps from meals. He ate slowly, but seemed to enjoy everything. He liked toys too. I'd drop in little plastic soldiers and stones. I imagined him as a giant sea monster looming over the tiny soldiers, my own little kraken. After a few days, a strange smell started coming from the jar. I waited until the house was empty, then brought it in to clean. My heart was racing as soon as I opened the jar. My nose burned. I was having an allergic reaction. I quickly poured Milou into fresh water and dumped the old stuff down the drain. I rushed outside, nearly dropping the jar. I had to sit and take my asthma meds, coughing between gulps. "I'm sorry," I wheezed. "I don't know what." I looked down. Milou had his head pressed to the glass, eyes wide. Somehow, even without expression, I could tell. He was worried. Whatever he was releasing into the water, I was allergic to it. That much was clear. I tried running the tap to get rid of the smell, but it lingered. My mom came home and walked in smiling. "Did someone bring in flowers?" she asked. "Smells amazing." As days turned into weeks, I realized something. Milou was doing something to the water, something that made my allergies flare up, but smelled great to everyone else. Once, while cleaning the jar, my dad walked in unexpectedly. I ran out the back door, leaving the jar on the counter. No rocks or twigs this time, but the scent was as strong as ever. It made me itch all over. Through the window, I watched Dad lift the jar, inspect it, sniff it, even taste it. Then he drank the whole thing, 6 big gulps. Milou kept growing, the filaments near his gills stretched out. His jaw shifted into a slight underbite, and his scales looked tougher with a bit of a glint. He'd outgrown the jar I kept him in, so I moved him into a pot. We had a few stored away, but it became clear he didn't like it. He preferred something clear. He liked to watch. He'd float gently, tail flicking, head always upright. He could sit like that for hours, just taking everything in. There was an old fermentation jar in the garage, something my grandfather had once used for preserving food. It hadn't seen use in ages, and it was big enough to fit Milou comfortably, even with room to spare. Being entirely glass, it was perfect. It also came with a spout at the bottom, making it easy to drain water without needing to clean the whole thing every time. It worked well enough. I tried hiding Milou in a corner of the shed where no one would see, but he didn't approve. He'd knock his head against the glass, motioning for me to move him. "I don't know where else to put you," I told him. "I just want you to be safe." He tapped the glass again. He was right. I couldn't trap him in a dark corner. Up the hill, near the forest's edge, the ground was soft and mossy. I dug a shallow hole beneath a tree and nestled the jar inside, leaving the top part above ground like a little window. I covered the rest with moss and leaves. When I sat down next to him, there was no more tapping. He was content. "I'll try to bring you a cricket tomorrow," I said. "Maybe something else too." Milou spun in a slow circle. His dark eyes looked up at me through the glass. "Do you need anything?" I asked. I wasn't expecting a reply, but He tapped. It wasn't random this time. It felt purposeful. Do you actually understand me? Another tap. I leaned in closer, eye to eye with him. He never blinked, just enough movement to stay afloat. Do you know your name is Milou? Tap. Do you like me? He paused, tilted his head, studying me from different angles. My chest tightened a little. Then, suddenly, tap. Clear and certain. We were friends. A few days later, I went to change his water. Things went fine at first, but I accidentally spilled a whole jar of wastewater on myself. I rushed back to the house to change before my throat swelled shut. Running through the kitchen, I passed Dad, who was helping my sisters with their schoolwork. He called after me and followed me into the washroom. I changed as quickly as I could, trying to hide the stains. But he was right there behind me. "What's that smell?" he asked. "Where were you?" "Just out in the woods," I replied. "Didn't go far. I stayed away from the lake." He pulled the stained pants from the laundry bin. To me, it smelled like an allergic reaction waiting to happen. But he smelled something else. "Is that wildflowers? Or maybe melon?" I didn't answer, just scrubbed my hands while a rash began to rise. He leaned in, catching my eye. "Did you make that lemonade on the counter earlier?" "It's just water," I said. "Not lemonade. Everything's water," he chuckled. "Even wine." "But did you make it?" "Sort of." He gave me a smile and a pat on the shoulder. I think that was the first time he genuinely approved of something I'd done. "You should make more," he said. It was amazing. I kept visiting Milou every day, chatting about little things. When I told him what Dad said, he seemed excited. I was still cautious. I didn't want anyone discovering him or asking questions. So the next time, I cleaned his jar. I saved the water in bottles, added wildflowers, and made it look like a homemade drink. Dad had never pushed me to create anything on my own before. I wanted to make him proud. I'd watched my parents work in the kitchen for years. I knew my way around. I cleaned the bottles, added honey and fennel, and even designed my own label. I was careful. I named it Milou, so if I slipped and said the name, it wouldn't raise suspicion. That night, during dinner, I brought out chilled bottles of Milou for everyone. I told them Dad liked it and hoped they would too. At first, they were unsure, but once they opened the bottles and heard that soft fizz, they took a sip. And just like that, their expressions changed. For once, everyone at the table smiled, and not just any smile. They were smiling at me. They loved the drink. They loved me. Through summer and into fall, I kept the routine. Milou was now big enough to eat a full meatball. He was longer than my foot, with room still to grow. I fed him, played with him, and cleaned his jar. But he was getting bored with the same toys and stones. He wanted more. He let me know with small taps. So I began cutting out images from old newspapers, mostly of people, and sticking them to the jar. He liked that, especially faces with smiles. He always lingered on those. I kept making bottles of Milou about once a week. I told everyone it was a secret recipe. Dad started bringing ingredients for me. Honey, fennel, sometimes fruit. We'd work on mixtures together and he encouraged me to try new ideas. To me, everything just smelled like burning chemicals. But I felt useful. It meant something. I told them I couldn't drink it, that it hurt me. No one questioned it. They just enjoyed it. Even Maurice. This went on for a full year. I had the best birthday I could remember. My family didn't just show up out of duty. They were happy to celebrate me. They included me in conversations, asked for my thoughts. On New Year's Eve, I heard Dad proudly bragging to a neighbor about my drink. I wasn't just the sick kid anymore. I was part of the family's future. But there was some tension. Maurice kept trying to copy my drink. I'd find him out in the field or the kitchen, experimenting. It drove him crazy that he couldn't match it. One day, he told me outright he'd make something better. He wouldn't lose to a kid who couldn't even handle fabric softener. Dad had different plans, bigger ones. In spring, we used Milous, water to make our first wine, just as a dilution to balance the sugar. But Dad thought it added something special, called it a colorful musky tone, whatever that meant. Mineral water might not change the taste, he said, but it can change how it feels. And this, he held up one of my bottles, giving it a little shake. This will feel like a mother's kiss. I remember when we finished that wine. Dad poured a glass, let it breathe. We sat quietly at the kitchen table. He examined the color, swirled it, sniffed. When he finally took a sip, his eyes lit up. He set down the glass and smiled at me like he'd just struck gold. He hoisted me up onto his shoulder and rushed outside with the bottle, calling for Mom to try the wine. We ran to the vineyard workers. A couple were off to the side taking a break. Dad handed the bottle to one of them. "Tell me," he said, "this isn't the best thing you've ever tasted." Claude took a drink straight from the bottle, thought her for a moment. Then he smiled wide and let out a loud laugh. He passed it to the next guy, shouting in excitement. Soon, everyone was gathering, all getting a taste. And my dad went around, beaming. "My son made this," he laughed. "My son." There were pats on my shoulder, hair tousled, laughter all around. The bottle made its rounds until it was empty. "Best thing I've tasted. It's so smooth. It melts in your mouth. I love it." After that, things were good, but more complicated. Dad kept asking for the recipe. He wanted to go into full production, but I couldn't give it to him. I was just a kid, and I couldn't explain why. He wasn't angry, just disappointed. Morris, though, had his own ideas. One day, while I was cleaning Milous' jar, I noticed Maurice had followed me. I thought I'd been discreet, hiding bottles in my backpack, but he must have heard them clinking. He hadn't seen the jar yet, but he was close. "You hide stuff up here?" he asked. "What are you using?" He looked around, nudging aside some leaves. I didn't move or say anything. It felt like dealing with a wild animal. Any motion might set him off. Mushrooms. Roots. He picked up a rock. I avoided eye contact, which only seemed to provoke him. He threw it. It missed me and hit the jar. It didn't break, just made a loud sound. Morris shoved past me. "No," I shouted. "Please don't." That only made him more curious. He pushed aside the moss and saw the top of the jar. He grinned and twisted the lid open. I pulled a bottle from my bag and held it like a bat. "Stop, or I'll do something." He froze, dropped the lid, looked at me. Older, stronger, healthier. He had every advantage, and I dared to threaten him. He lunged, tackled me. He hit me again and again. I'd never fought him before, not like this. There was no holding back. He wanted to hurt me. As I lay there, face pressed into the dirt, I saw Milou. His eyes watched us from over the edge of the jar. His long face opened in a silent cry. Then he started to shake. Morris suddenly collapsed. He convulsed like he was copying Milou. His body jerked, foam spilling from his mouth. It smelled like Milou's water. My relief quickly turned to fear. I rolled him over, hitting his back. He gasped, still coughing foam. His eyes were pitch black, like Milou's. "It's okay," I whispered, more to calm Milou than myself. "It's okay. You're okay." Milou stopped trembling. He rested, his head against the glass. Then Maurice spoke. "Are you all right, friend?" It was his mouth, but not his voice. A low, rasping growl came out instead. His throat trembled slightly, as if something were pressing against the inside, trying to get out. My gaze shifted between Maurice and Milou. "Are you doing that?" I whispered. "He won't harm you," Maurice said. "I'll make sure of that." Maurice wasn't moving. I couldn't even tell if he was conscious. Was he trembling or breathing? "How are you doing that?" I asked. "I go swim," he replied. "I can swim very far." There was no need to say thank you. Milou simply slid back into his jar. As he did, Maurice's eyes returned to their usual cold gray. He bent over, clutching his stomach, retching uncontrollably. He had no memory of what had just happened, but he knew he'd been defeated. I felt on top of the world. Maurice couldn't bother me anymore. I felt assured, protected. I had someone on my side, and he was stronger than anyone else. So the next time my dad asked for help with the wine, I agreed, but on my own terms. The dilution tank was off limits. Only I could manage it. He accepted that. By mid-July, the tank was ready. It resembled a small swimming pool. No one was around when I placed Milou inside. "You can't look out," I told him, "but you'll hear people all day. Is that okay?" He bumped his head gently against the metal wall. That was his yes. He had so much space to grow, and he was already as big as my leg. Then I had a foolish idea. I took a beach ball from the shed and climbed into the tank with him. It was cold and dark, but I trusted him completely. He was my best friend. I knew he wouldn't hurt me. The water was clean, so I didn't react to it. I blew up the ball and tossed it to him. He passed it back. We played like that for a while, laughing as the sound echoed in the steel chamber. Things advanced from there. Dad tested a batch using Milou. He gave bottles to his staff and brought a few to a sommelier in Marseille. It was a hit. The first batch, tentatively called Ami de Milou, sold out almost instantly. What started as a passion project was quickly becoming a business, but it was getting out of control. I had to yell at workers to stay away from the tank. Dad brushed it off. He still honored our agreement. I was in charge, but I could tell he was wavering. I could feel myself being pushed aside. And honestly, could I blame him? You can't base an industry on the word of a child. Then one night I saw my dad climbing up to inspect the dilution tank. He wanted to take a sample for testing. Despite promising me countless times he wouldn't, he did it anyway. I didn't understand he needed to ensure it was safe. You can't sell unknown substances. But I didn't care. I felt betrayed. So I let him open the tank. As soon as he did, his expression changed. He climbed down the ladder like someone relearning how to walk. He wasn't trembling like Morris. He seemed altered, reborn in some way, someone unfamiliar with his own body. His dark, vacant eyes met mine. He smiled. "Friend," he rasped. "Best friend." In the following weeks, I started noticing strange behavior. Claude once paused mid-task to stare blankly at the sky. My sister watched television without blinking, her eyes darkening. My brothers sat silently by the fridge, tasting sauces and jams straight from the jars. Milou was seeing the world through anyone who drank from the tank. I remember when Dad came home with those eyes. Then Mom did too. They started kissing in the hallway. Rough, aggressive, not like themselves. They shoved and grabbed each other, then hurried upstairs. They never came down. We missed dinner. Still, most days were normal. Until they weren't. I remember my 10th birthday. It was quiet. I came downstairs to find my family sitting in a circle. My parents, my siblings. Their eyes dark, their grins forced and unnatural. More like snarling animals than smiling people. "Happy birthday," they said together. I was given the seat of honor. All eyes on me. There was a carrot cake. Dad stood with a kitchen knife. He shoved my sister so hard, she fell, still smiling. He leaned over the table and slammed his hand on a plate, as if his joints weren't working properly. Miraculously, the plate didn't break. He leaned in with the knife, using his full weight, cutting off the tip of his finger. He didn't flinch. He didn't even serve the cake. He just sliced into it, mimicking pictures he'd seen. With both hands, he dragged the whole thing across the table. Glasses toppled, plates fell, spoons scattered. My siblings collapsed like chess pieces, grinning as they did. "Happy birthday, friend," he croaked. "Best friend." "Thank you, Milou," I whispered. "Thank you. I love you. I love you too, Milou." Dad sat on the floor, looking at me like a curious puppy. The last spoon remained in front of me. They all watched, awaiting my approval. I took a bite of the cake. Their teeth chattered in delight. They were so happy. So happy. I didn't know what to do. Milou was extending his reach. I saw townspeople with dark eyes. Bus drivers, fruit vendors. They'd touch flowers, stroke blue sunflower petals. Sometimes they gathered in groups, communicating in gargles, lost in sensation. I saw them in the library, 10 people reading different books at once. At school, our music teacher banged at the piano like he'd never used one before. I read stories about fishermen returning with strange barrels. Barrels that always ended up in our tank. Milou was calculating. He didn't trust anyone but me. And it worked. One night, I climbed up the tank. I opened it carefully, holding my breath against the fumes. Milou had grown. He was 12 feet long, curled into a spiral. Around him floated dozens of tiny black shapes, no larger than fingernails. His offspring. I didn't know what to say. Speaking burned my throat. He rose from the water like a cobra. His eyes were larger than my fists. His spines thick like branches. He wasn't my pet anymore. I was his. He leaned in. I saw his translucent fangs. He gently pressed his mouth to my forehead like a kiss. It was cold. It stung. I was still allergic to him. "You're hurting me," I whispered. He withdrew. Even now he understood. He recoiled back into the water. I climbed down. It all collapsed in late September. I woke to cheers and running footsteps. Looking outside, I saw torches. The tractor was moving. They were dragging the tank across the field with chains, tearing up vines along the way. I put on my shoes and ran outside. My siblings were already there, flailing, dancing, shrieking. They no longer tried to act human. They even smelled like Milou. Everyone was preoccupied, yelling, chasing, touching the ground and sky. One sister knelt in the grass, staring at the moon. Claude ran a torch through his hand, like it was nothing. Then I saw my parents. They emerged from the storeroom, carrying someone between them. A stranger, conscious, scared. "Let me go," he shouted. "Who are you people?" The others pelted him with objects, grapes, tools, gloves. Blood ran from a wound on his forehead. "What is this? What are you doing?" he cried. No one answered. They led him up the tank. The moment he looked inside, he screamed, he begged, he fought. But his body failed him, and the group restrained him. I tried to speak, but my voice faltered. They ignored me. He was thrown into the water. His cries turned to pain. His voice echoed violently, like something was pulling at him. They celebrated, gargling, dancing. Then, a small hand tugged mine, my youngest sister. "We want to try," she said, "to taste, to see." "You're hurting him," I cried. "Please stop." "I'm hurting him," she replied. "Not you. Never you." "No," I shouted. "This hurts me too." She paused. Movement in the tank halted. She held my hand, thinking, then smiled again. "I have a solution. Friend. Best friend." She hugged me. Then others joined. Mom, Dad, Maurice. The screaming resumed in the tank. They pulled me to the ground, hugging, stroking my hair, whispering affection as bones cracked and flesh tore behind them. "I love you," they said. "I love you." I lay there all night, listening to a man be devoured. The next morning, a bag sat by the front door. A stranger in sunglasses waited in a white car. My father led me by the hand. "If it hurts, don't look," he said. "I'll take care of you." "What are you doing?" I asked. "Taking care." They put me in the car. Morris came too, dark-eyed and quiet. "I don't like this one," he said, referring to the driver. "He goes too." They sent me away. I stayed with someone in Marseille for a while. Morris came back to himself eventually, but we couldn't explain any of it. We were just kids, but we had food, a place to sleep, an allowance beyond what we could imagine. We could go anywhere. I wish I could say we fought back, found a clever plan, outsmarted the frog, but we didn't, and we weren't. That was years ago. Ami de Milou has a new name now. I've tried posting it, but it always gets removed. I'm almost 22. I've never worked. I have a nice car, a big apartment. People assume I'm from wealth. When I say the company's name, people gasp. You probably know it too. No one believes me. My letters vanish. Calls get cut. The dark-eyed wear sunglasses now. But I can still tell. They move differently. I can't say when Morris and I gave up. Maybe when we realized we could eat ice cream for dinner. Maybe when Morris got a dog. Or maybe it was on my first birthday, away from home, when a man with dark eyes gave me a card. It showed two boys playing with a beach ball. "I love you," it said. "They run other businesses now. I recognize the logos on boats, on garbage trucks. Lately, I've noticed a familiar smell in the shower water. Maybe there's a logo at the treatment plant, too. I've gone back, but I can't get close. There are guards, fences, especially around the new artificial lake. Still, I suppose I'm lucky. Wherever I go, someone's watching. Someone cares. And if I'm ever lonely, I just find a crowd. I love you, Milou. That's all I need to say." And somewhere, someone always whispers it back. There's something deeply unsettling about the whale fall we've been examining. The ocean has always sustained itself, operating in a cycle where life continues to give back long after death. That's the essence of a whale fall. The body of a dead whale descending to the seafloor, nourishing a variety of marine life throughout the slow stages of decay. Earlier this year, a team of marine biologists and I spent nearly 3 months observing a whale fall we named Titus. What made it noteworthy was its location. It had come to rest in waters far shallower than typical for such events. We believed the whale had fallen ill, wandered off its migratory route, and ultimately died stranded, though not alone. Its body became the center of activity for countless organisms that arrived to feed on its remains. Initially, everything unfolded as expected. Sharks, crustaceans, worms, and even seals were drawn to the site. Our submersible dives and remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, captured footage of the natural process as it played out. Then something shifted. Titus stopped decaying. Or more precisely, the process slowed unnaturally, perhaps even halted. That's when we realized something was wrong, or had been from the start. The change was so gradual, we didn't register it until it was too late to pull back. The creatures drawn to the whale never left. They remained attached, mouths locked to the carcass, in a constant state of feeding. Yet the body itself stayed the same. A gaping wound on its left flank, exposing a glinting ribcage. One eye hollowed and ruined, the other still open, gazing blankly into the deep. This strange stasis became more troubling the longer it lasted. It must be a parasite or infection, my colleague Demetrio suggested. Whatever killed the whale is now influencing the scavengers. They're not truly feeding, just mimicking the act. That's why the decomposition's so minimal. Another team member, Reynolds, disagreed. It's more than that. The whale's grown. We laughed, thinking she'd been staring at the footage too long. The sea can do that. Get into your head. That mystery is what drew me into marine biology in the first place. The knowledge that no matter how much we learn, we'll never fully grasp everything below the surface. You don't have to believe me, Reynolds said. Compare the footage from now to when we started. It's gained nearly a foot in length. It shouldn't be possible, but it's there. She was right. How we hadn't noticed, I can't say. All of us had been equally involved. Perhaps we'd seen it and refused to accept what it implied. Parasites again, said Demetriou, trying to sound conclusive. They're bloating the tissues. Makes the whale look bigger than it is. Reynolds shook her head. No, look at the animals around it. They're not dead, not even emaciated. And any weight loss they've had isn't from starvation. So, what are you suggesting? I asked, though I already knew. Titus is feeding on the scavengers, she said. I can't explain how, but that's what's happening. Demetrius snapped. It's not the whale. It's dead. Something might be hiding inside it, yes, but the whale itself, that's absurd. Reynolds had no explanation, but her certainty was clear. We'll send the ROV for another tissue sample, I offered. Then we'll analyze it and determine what's changed. To see who was right, I almost added. The others agreed that this was the safest, least disruptive approach. But Reynolds wasn't satisfied. I want to get closer, she said. I need to see it directly. You mean take the sub out again? I asked. That's possible later on, but the ROV will gather more valuable data. We could even retrieve a smaller scavenger to examine for infection or parasites. Demetrio and Barden nodded in agreement, but Reynolds turned away, jaw clenched in frustration. Our last dive was only 2 weeks ago, I said. It's unlikely anything visibly significant has changed since then. Reynolds drummed her fingers on a nearby workstation. We could dive down ourselves, she said. It's shallow. Enough. Bad idea, Barden said. There are sharks and other predators down there. They might see us as a threat. I've dived with sharks before. It's not something you rush into. And we risk interfering with the ecosystem. That would compromise our findings. Reynolds stood and paced the lab. Barden watched her carefully. No dive, I said firmly. If Demetrius' theory holds, then getting too close is dangerous, even with gear. Safety first, you know that. Reynolds' face tightened. I couldn't understand why she was so intent on it. She knew better. Fine, she muttered, storming out and letting the door slam behind her. Barden flinched and gave a nervous laugh. Wow, what's going on with her? She's obsessed, said Demetrio. She's barely slept or eaten since we began. This isn't about the work anymore. What are you implying? I asked. You think it's personal? Mental health? Family? Demetrio shrugged. Could be anything. The other night, she brought up the whale song we've been picking up during recent trips. Claimed it's connected to the fall. Doesn't make any sense. Keep an eye on her, Heaney. You know her best. I sighed. Her tone was clear. She's your responsibility. If something were wrong, she'd tell me, I said. Reynolds isn't the secretive type. It's probably just the odd nature of the situation. I'm unsettled too. If we're dealing with an infection or something parasitic, we'll need outside input. She doesn't think it's that, Demetriou replied. She believes the whale's still alive somehow. You can't tell me that's normal. Her suspicious gaze made me uneasy, as if she thought I shared Reynolds' belief. She's just tired, like all of us, I said. Let's focus on the ROV. We'll send out Mercutio in the next few days. That worked for everyone. Mercutio was our ROV, mostly operated by Demetrio, thanks to her engineering background. Fine, she said, clearly still frustrated. But remember, I'm not the issue here. Midweek, we launched from RV Sylvia, the research vessel used for our dives. Excitement and anxiety ran through the team as we prepared for another mission. I noticed Demetrio throwing irritated glances at Reynolds on the control deck and pulled her aside. Stay professional today. We're recording this run and we'll have other crew members on board. Let's not give anyone a reason to doubt us. They already think isolation's messing with our heads. Demetrio rolled her eyes and pulled away from my hand. Tell that to Reynolds, not me. She's the one still pushing that ridiculous idea. I'll talk to her, I snapped. But stop this back and forth. You've had issues with her for months, even before this. And I'm tired of it, Rhea. Focus on what matters. Reynolds kept it to herself as the ROV was lowered into the sea. She leaned forward, watching the monitors closely as Titus came into view. The body was surrounded by scavengers, some feasting, others circling. I don't get how they're not starving, Barton said. You'd expect at least a few to have died by now. Symbiosis, maybe, Demetriou replied, adjusting Mercutio's course. The parasites inside the whale keep the scavengers alive just long enough to feed. Then they die and make room for the next wave. Smart place to hide, plenty of live food. Demetriou's voice was steady, but I noticed her jaw was tight, and one eyelid had developed a twitch. Despite her confidence, she wasn't as calm as she seemed. She was just as confused as the rest of us, but pretending to understand seemed to comfort her. It made her feel in control, as if we were the foolish ones for not seeing what she claimed to see. We stood silently, crowded around the monitors, as Mercutio slowly zoomed in on the whale fall. Titus sprawled like a drunken colossus in that grotesque feeding ground, his one remaining eye fixed on the camera, almost as if inviting us to join the feast. Some of the smaller creatures looked increasingly fragile, and I realized that while we'd been preparing, whatever resided within the whale had begun feeding at an accelerated rate. Reynolds murmured to herself, her words lost beneath the chatter in the control room. I'm going to try and collect samples now, said Demetriou. I'll take two, one from the meat clinging to the ribs, and another from where the scavengers are most active. We might see different results. Reynolds flinched at that, but stayed silent. I wondered what was going through her mind. Did she truly believe the whale had simply appeared down there, that it was something else entirely, only resembling a whale through coincidence, or some twisted form of evolution? She had always been drawn to the unexplored reaches of the ocean, those dark trenches where the pressure alone could crush man or machine. Back when we were students, she often dreamed of discovering one of the ancient sea monsters told of in sailors' tales, of being the first to prove they were real. Maybe that fantasy had evolved into her seeing Titus as one of those creatures. If that's what she believed, I watched her now with a mix of interest and concern, trying to read every small expression, never quite understanding what I saw. On the screens, Mercutio extended its mechanical arms and carefully cut into the flesh. Demetriou narrowed her eyes, guiding the manipulator back to the vehicle to store the sample. The scavengers stirred around it, reacting to the disturbance. They're paying attention, Barton noted. That's something. We all understood his meaning. None of us had said it aloud, but we feared the creatures might ignore Mercutio completely, no more responsive than tumors clinging to a corpse. But they didn't follow it. They simply watched it move to the other side of the carcass. All right, said Demetriou, going in again. Once you've done that, see if you can grab one of the crabs, I added. They're small enough to transport. Just then, a pair of tiger sharks that had been circling suddenly lunged at Mercutio, tearing at the foam on its frame. Stop moving, I told her. If it stays still, they'll lose interest. Demetriou paused the ROV, but the sharks continued their assault. This wasn't idle curiosity. It was aggression with intent. They're protecting it, Reynolds said abruptly. They know we're here. Titus knows. Don't be ridiculous, Barton snapped. But I noticed his hands fidgeting with the zipper of his jacket, his gaze following the animals around the whale. perhaps seeing their actions in the same new, uneasy way. Reynolds did. "Damn it," said Demetriou. "I'm pulling Mercutio out. We'll have to come back another time or risk losing everything." I watched anxiously as the ROV retreated, only one sample collected. The sharks continued snapping at its sides. My eyes drifted to the single dark eye of Titus, so alien, yet unsettlingly alive. I looked away with a shiver. "You hear that?" Reynolds said into the hush. "What?" barked Demetriou. Not now, yet she tilted her head slightly, as if she, too, had caught a sound. Barden and Reynolds locked eyes. They both heard it. "What am I supposed to be listening for?" I asked. And then I heard it too. A low, distant whale song. Everyone's expression shifted with recognition. I suddenly realized how quickly we'd started aligning ourselves with Reynolds' beliefs. "Let's not get carried away," I said. "Probably just the same group of whales we've been tracking for weeks." "Demetriou, status?" "Almost clear," she replied. "Someone tell the crew we need to head back." Barden stood abruptly, nearly tripping as he left. "I'll do it." He didn't look back at the monitors, shielding his face with one hand. We were all relieved when the displays went dark, except Reynolds. She walked to the glass, pressing her hand to it as though she might touch the whale itself. Demetriou turned to me, visibly angry. "Not now," I mouthed. Back at the facility, I pulled Reynolds aside into a quiet office. "Deanna," I said, "what's going on? You're scaring people." "This talk about Titus, it's planting dangerous ideas." She shrugged, distant and unfazed. "I think Demetriou's right," I continued. "We should notify disease control. Something's wrong with that whale. Maybe infectious. We've all been exposed to the samples, the water, the air around it. But whatever's happening, it isn't what you think. This theory about the whale being alive, it just doesn't hold." "I'm not so sure," Reynolds replied. "We know so little about the deep sea. What if it's not a whale at all, but something evolved to look like one? A lure to draw animals close, to feed." "There's no real evidence of that," I said. "Though I suppose it's not impossible. But you speak as if it's more than survival." Reynolds fidgeted. "Maybe not more, maybe just different. Everyone feels it, they just won't say it. I think it wants more than food, like how anglerfish fuse during mating. It's trying to grow by absorbing others. One organism made of many. And you think that's intentional? Instinctual, at least. Maybe intentional. Whales are smart. Why couldn't this thing be?" I closed my eyes, exhaustion hitting me. I don't know what's worse, if it knows what it's doing or if it's just biology. "Not that I agree with your theory," I added. "Demetriou's explanation makes more sense. Just don't let this obsession take over. You and Demetriou will tear each other apart." Over the next 4 days, I wrote reports and drafted contingency plans in case the whale's remains did prove infectious. Others on the team examined the sample, testing, slicing, studying every detail. All the while, Demetriou and Reynolds clashed over the results, while Barden tried and failed to mediate. I should have stepped in. I didn't. Since our last visit to Titus, I'd been caught in a strange lethargy, spending every spare moment walking the ruined shoreline. I listened for whale songs, always present now, or, as Reynolds believed, the voice of Titus itself. I felt an ache I couldn't name, a disconnect from my team who had grown strangely close without me. I only realized how deeply it affected me when Dimitriou woke me one morning, shaking me awake. "Reynolds and Barton are gone," she said. "They took a boat, diving gear, and the sample." I slapped my cheeks to wake up fully. "What? Why?" Dimitriou looked away, guilty. "There was a fight last night. Same argument we've all had. The tests. They showed the tissue was from a living creature. I said it must be an error. Reynolds accused me of denial. We were drinking. Things got heated. Barton stepped in, but then he sided with her. He said I needed to stop resisting, that I knew the truth too. I got angry, told him to shut up, went to bed. This morning, they were gone. They're diving to the fall." Panic closed my throat. I stared around the room, unable to believe how quickly we'd fallen apart. "Mercutio's still being repaired," I said. "We'll have to take the backup ROV. We're not diving." That's how this all started. Getting too close, after alerting the authorities, Dimitriou, I, and a groggy crew boarded the RV Sylvia for an emergency trip back. It was risky, but I had to see for myself what had happened, to confirm or disprove what had been eating away at us. We found the stolen boat drifting empty near Titus. The deck was dry. Neither of them had returned from the dive. "Idiots," muttered Dimitriou, pale and shaking. "They didn't have to die for this." I placed a hand on her shoulder. Her skin was clammy with sweat, smelling of salt. "That's not the whole reason they went," I said. "You felt it too. That pull, haven't you?" Dimitriou didn't answer. She only stared at the boat. "You have," I said. "Just like I have. Like they did. You're just trying to ignore it. They couldn't." I gently guided her away from the edge of the boat. "Let's get to control. We need to know what happened." We gathered around as Dimitriou lowered the ROV with a hesitance I hadn't seen before. The dark shape of the fall filled the screen. Slowly, details emerged. Mangled flesh, swarming life. Reynolds and Barton were among them. Their regulators discarded, mouths pressed into the whale's body. Their limbs drifted, still moving, somehow alive without air. "Holy God," said one of the crew. "What is this?" "Get closer," I said. "I want to see their faces." Dimitriou obeyed. The ROV edged in. The two looked up together, their eyes empty yet still responding, animated by a vitality that was no longer their own. Their mouths, like the others, had fused with the whale's flesh, absorbed. All of them, one being. The eye of Titus followed our retreat, and just before the feed ended, I swear it moved. After that, things became a blur. Government teams quarantined us the moment we landed. The site was sealed off. Military vessels hovered at a safe distance. Reynolds and Barton were declared dead. One of the doctors here told me in confidence. I don't think any of the experts truly understand what we encountered. Maybe only those who've joined with the fall ever will. We're separated now, in different facilities, monitored, studied. I don't know how long they'll keep us. Perhaps until the whale is destroyed or buried. I wonder if I'll feel it when it dies, if the connection will break, or if I'll go on changed forever. I still hear the songs, likely hallucinations, but they feel real. I wonder if the others hear them too, in their separate rooms. I don't know how much longer I could have lasted out there. Even now, knowing what they became, part of me still longs for it, to join the many, that is Titus, because in that half-death, life, horrible and beautiful, would go on through me. Every night at 3 a.m., I hear my dead brother asking me to open the door. I haven't told anyone about this. Not my family. Not my friends. I'm not even sure why I'm writing it down here. Maybe I just need someone to believe me, or at the very least, to read this before it happens again tonight. It's been exactly 1 year since my younger brother, Elias, passed away. He was 3 years younger than me, but always felt older. He was calmer, more patient, more centered. While I was loud and impulsive, Elias was the quiet one, always reading, always smiling without needing a reason. The cancer came suddenly. Acute leukemia. The doctors didn't soften the news. They said he might have a few months. In the end, it was barely 8 weeks. Spent most of that time with him. I helped him eat when he couldn't lift his arms, held his hand when he was too weak to speak, cracked jokes just to make him smile. In his final hours when he was barely present, he looked right at me, not with fear, not with sadness, just understanding. "Don't stay alone," he whispered. Those were the last words he spoke. After that, everything stopped. The monitor flatlined. The nurse said something quiet. And then, nothing. The world just froze. I didn't cry much at first. A part of me didn't want to accept he was really gone. I pulled away from everything. School, friends, my routine. I slept during the day, stayed awake all night, barely ate. I thought maybe the quiet would help me process it. Instead, it made room for something else. The first time I heard his voice, again, it was around 3 a.m. I wasn't asleep, just lying there, staring at the ceiling with the window cracked to let in the late October air. "Are you there?" It was soft, barely a whisper, coming from the hallway. I froze, not out of fear, but because I recognized that voice. I got up, opened the door, turned on the lights. Nothing. Doors were locked, windows closed. The only sound was my heartbeat. The next night it happened again. Same time, same voice. "Are you there?" I told myself it was just memory playing tricks. A hallucination from lack of sleep. That explanation made sense, right? But the voice kept returning. Every night, always, at 3 a.m. Then the footsteps began. Soft, careful steps across the hallway, stopping just outside my door. Quiet, but impossible to ignore. Eventually, I began locking my bedroom door at night. I played music, white noise, even podcasts, anything to drown it out. But nothing worked. The sound always came through, always him. Then came the knocking. 3 gentle taps. Then his voice, closer now. "Please, open the door." It never sounded threatening, not angry, just desperate, almost sorrowful. I promised myself I wouldn't open it. I wasn't going to give in. I wouldn't feed whatever this was, grief, stress, my mind playing tricks. But it didn't stop. And then it escalated. I started finding things around the apartment, items I hadn't seen in years, things I knew were packed away in the attic, sealed and forgotten. A small, worn-out toy dinosaur on the windowsill, his favorite when he was a kid. A half-empty Capri Sun on the kitchen counter. Wild cherry, the flavor he always begged Mom to buy each day. A new item, Each night, his voice, it was like the past was bleeding into the present, or something was trying to pull me backward. Last night I found his old diary sitting on my desk. He had it with him at the hospital. I remember packing it in his bag. It brought him comfort, even though he rarely wrote in it. It never came home. And yet, there it was, dusty, locked, familiar. I opened it. On the last page, there was a new line, written in shaky but clearly his handwriting. I found a place for you. That's when I realized this wasn't just memory or grief. Something was actively reaching out. I've tried everything. I left town, stayed at hotels, crashed with friends. I even rented a cabin hours away, turned off my phone, cut all contact, but it doesn't matter where I go. At 3 a.m., I still hear him, even when I'm fully awake, even when I know he can't be there. And each night, his voice shifts, just slightly, a slower rhythm, a flatter tone, like an old recording wearing down, like something imitating him is starting to slip. If it really is Elias, why does he sound less and less like himself every night? Tonight marks a year since he died. 1 full year, and I can already hear him. No waiting for 3 a.m. this time. He's early. I hear footsteps in the hallway. Slower than before. More intentional. Closer. Then the whisper, "Please, open the door." I know I shouldn't. Every instinct tells me not to. But something deep inside keeps saying tonight is different. That maybe if I open the door, this will finally stop. That maybe I'll see him just once more. That maybe it won't end unless I do. I'm standing now. I'm walking to the door. My hand is on the lock. I'm going to open it. I thought it was just a strange security gig until I saw my name in the protocol. Have you ever ignored your instincts so completely that your own body pushed back? Heart racing, skin crawling, chest tight with a voice inside yelling, "Don't," but you did it anyway. For money. Would you accept a job that pays cash, asks no questions, and only has one condition? Follow the rules. Even when the rules feel senseless. Even when they seem written in something darker than ink. I did. And now, I'm not sure I ever really left. It all began 2 months ago. I wasn't just low on funds. I was broke. The kind of broke where hunger wakes you up. My car was wrecked. I'd lost my job. Rent was past due. The power was hanging by a thread. Every text felt like a punch. Landlord, bank, debt collectors. I was already drowning. No one left to ask. No lies left to believe. No lucky breaks left to lean on. Then I saw the ad, buried deep in Craigslist's etc. section. No pictures, just plain text. Night security needed. Cash paid daily. Discretion required. No experience needed. No background check. Just show up on time. And follow the rules. There was a number. A name. Marvin. Call between 9 and 11 p.m. only. It smelled like trouble, but I knew that smell well. I was steeped in it. I called at 9:04. Marvin answered on the second ring. His voice was dry, clipped, not rude, just efficient. "You want the job?" he asked. No small talk, no questions. I guess I need to know what it is first. Night security, Pine Shadows Mall. Starts tonight. That dead mall outside town. Still technically open, he said. Technically. No interview. Nope. No paperwork. Nope. You just hire people over the phone. I hire the ones who show up, he said. Then gave me the address. Back entrance, 11:50 sharp. Don't be late. He hung up. Pine Shadows Mall used to mean something. I remembered birthdays there, movie nights, pretzels. That neon glow, back then, it was alive, buzzing with sound and people. By the time I arrived, it was hollowed out, a skeleton of a place. A few discount stores struggled to stay open in daylight, but at night, it was silent, dead, a concrete husk that hadn't breathed in years. The parking lot was empty, except for a battered blue sedan under a flickering light. The lamp above it blinked like it was nodding off. Marvin stood by the loading dock door, short, thin, skin like wax paper, eyes always moving, like he was waiting for something to step out of the dark. You're early, he said. Is that a problem? I asked. No, early's good, late's bad. How bad? I tried to keep it light. He didn't answer. Instead, he handed me a laminated card, about phone-sized. Looked homemade, scratched up, corners frayed. Read this, he said. Memorize it. Don't lose it. Don't damage it. Don't get clever. The card read, Night Shift Guidelines, Pine Shadows Mall Clock. And by 11:55 p.m., never later, lock all main doors, every single one. Between 12:15 and 1 a.m., avoid the East Wing, no matter what you hear. If you see someone on the food court carousel, do not engage. Walk away. At 2:33 a.m., check the toy store. If the clown doll is missing from the window, leave immediately. Never fall asleep. I laughed. Are you serious? Marvin didn't laugh. He didn't even flinch. Just stared. You think this is funny? He asked, something dark in his voice. Sort of. Rule 5 especially. The clown doll. Really? He leaned in, voice low. Follow the rules, or end up like Gary. Who's Gary? I asked. He didn't respond, just turned. Clock in at 11:55. Any rational person would have left, called a friend, maybe laughed about it. But I wasn't thinking clearly. I needed the money. I needed anything. So I stayed. Inside, the mall was worse. The temperature dropped as soon as I stepped in. Not from poor heating, but something colder, unnatural. Like the walls had been storing frost. The lights buzzed with that old dying glow, yellowish, flickering, cracked tiles, shuttered shops, faded storefronts hidden behind grime or torn signage. The air smelled off, not just old. It was sharper, a mix of burnt plastic and too sweet cleaner, like someone trying to cover something. Up I passed abandoned kiosks, phone case stands, costume jewelry booths, thick dust everywhere, the kind of dust that looks moved. Most shop windows were dark. Some held mannequins frozen in awkward poses. Others were stripped bare. Empty shelves, torn carpet. A security desk sat at the center. Monitors showing grainy black and white footage. Half were just static. I clocked in exactly at 11:55. The old punch clock let out a crunch, then coughed up my time card like it didn't want to. I started my round. I locked every door, 6 in total. Each had a separate key. Some of the locks fought back. One nearly snapped. I cursed my way through it, drenched in sweat by the end. But by midnight, every door was shut tight. And then I reached the east wing, exactly 12:15 a.m. The air shifted. It wasn't just colder. It was dense, like something unseen had filled the space. A sound came with it, not mechanical, not human, like breath through an old pipe. You'd think something ominous would be impossible to ignore. You'd be wrong. The east wing lights flickered rapidly, almost like strobe lights. Beyond a few stores, the corridor vanished into blackness, not just dark, wrong. And then came the laughter, light, musical, childlike, echoing from everywhere and nowhere. The kind of sound that should be innocent, but wasn't. There hadn't been kids in that mall for years. It echoed like it ran through pipes, and somewhere in it, a rhyme. Something about spinning and counting. I froze. My gut told me to investigate. That's what security guards do, right? But no, I didn't. That card in my pocket, it felt heavier now, almost burning. Avoid the east wing, no matter what you hear. I turned, walked away. Every step was harder than it should have been, but I followed the rules. As soon as I left the corridor behind, the laughter stopped. Silence. That was worse. That's when I felt it watching me. Not Marvin, not a person. The mall. That building knew I was there. I'd seen abandoned malls before. Just sad relics. But Pine Shadows wasn't just empty. It felt aware, like it had soaked up every whisper, every scream, and was holding them close. I kept walking, made it to the food court. Most chairs were stacked, a few scattered as if someone had just left. Floor cracked, neon signs above dead restaurants flickered in faded color. Then I saw the carousel, a small, dusty ride with chipped paint and stiff horses. I remembered it from earlier, but now someone was on it. A man, gray hoodie, sitting still atop a white horse with blue reins. Head down, I couldn't see his face. My body tensed. I'd locked every door. No alarms, no movement on the monitors. Still, he was there. Didn't look long. Didn't need to. The wrongness rolled off him in waves. Rule 4. Do not acknowledge them. Walk away. So I did. No rush, no noise. When I reached the storage hallway, I looked back once. He was gone. No sound, no sign. Just the sick feeling that someone or something had been watching me. I'll never forget the time. But that night, I was still more curious than afraid. The toy store's windows were filthy. Fingerprints and dust from years past. Faded toys in the display. Wooden trains, plastic dinos, cheap knockoffs. And there it was, the clown, 2 feet tall, red yarn hair, painted smile, a nose set off center, black lashes, blue teardrops under each eye, exactly where the rule said it would be. It stayed still, unmoving, but I swear, it felt aware. I watched it longer than I should have, waiting, unsure. Then I exhaled. My throat was dry, legs stiff, but nothing happened. The doll remained exactly where it had been. That meant, for now, I was safe. At dawn, Marvin stood waiting by the back entrance, arms folded, expression unreadable. "You did good," he said, like he hadn't expected. Me too. I wanted answers about the clown, the man on the carousel, the East Wing, everything. But before I could say a word, he was already walking away. I chalked it all up to stress, my mind filling in gaps, as it always did when things got too quiet. I figured I could power through, last a week, earn enough to fix my car and buy some breathing space. But Pine Shadows didn't work like that. This place doesn't let you adapt. It waits, it watches, then it shifts the rules. Night 3 was the breaking point. That night I made my first serious mistake. It wasn't a big one, just 2 minutes late. My ride bailed last minute. Something about her cousin being sick or maybe arrested. Buses stopped before 11. I didn't have cab money, so I ran. Literally sprinted across town through the cold spring air. My lungs burned. Shoes slapped pavement like they were trying to escape. I kept checking my burner phone. 11:40, 11:47, 11:52, 11:54, 11:56. I was still outside. 11:57. I clocked in. 2 minutes late. I stood there panting, sweat freezing on my neck, staring at the timestamp like it might change. It didn't. And the mall felt it. The lights were different, louder. Their hum now an angry buzz like bees behind glass. It didn't stay steady. It wavered like a speaker losing power. The air grew heavier. Every shadow stretched a little too far. Every step echoed just a little too late. Then the radio crackled. At first, I assumed interference, dying batteries, dirty wiring, but the sounds had a rhythm, not random noise, patterns, faint phrases, too quick and too low to catch. Something was trying to speak through the static. That's when I noticed the doors. On previous nights, I had locked them. Now, some stood wide open. Not all, just enough to feel intentional, like they wanted me to investigate. I didn't. I turned and relocked them, fast. The moment the bolts clicked into place, I heard something move on the other side. Not a person, not an animal, something else. 2:15 a.m., the East Wing, breathed. There's no better word. The corridor felt like it inhaled. Air shifted, lights dimmed, then the footsteps. Heavy, slow, deliberate. Not a child's steps, not a drifter's. They sounded like boots, dragging metal behind them, like a chain or a shovel scraping tile. I froze, then backed into the janitor's closet, shut the door, sat on an overturned bucket, radio clenched in both hands, and listened to whatever was outside. I didn't come out until 1:01 a.m. When I did, the hallway was empty, except for the floor. Scratches, deep looping gouges carved into the tile. Arcs, straight lines, all ending just inches from the closet door. I didn't speak for the rest of my shift, didn't even breathe too loud. Marvin was waiting the next morning, but this time he said nothing. He just handed me a new laminated card. It was clean, untouched. I turned it over. Updated night shift rules. Pine Shadows. Mall. If you miss clock in, stay outside. Do not enter until 1:01 a.m. Apologize aloud when you do, and hope it's accepted. If you hear anything strange, close your eyes and chant, "We shall obey, we shall obey." If doors are found open, relock them immediately. Never open the play area gate, even if you hear crying. I stared at the card. Marvin just watched me. like a doctor watching a patient process bad news. "Who writes these?" I asked. He shook his head. "They write themselves." The next several nights were brutal. I started seeing things. Not full-blown hallucinations, just flashes. Movement in my peripheral vision. A figure slipping behind a store rack. A face staring through a window that should have been empty. Once, near Sunglass Hut, I saw a woman behind the counter. Motionless, arms at her sides, jet black hair hanging perfectly over her face that didn't look right. Too smooth. No eyebrows. Just hollow black eyes. No whites. No iris. She didn't blink. She smiled. I didn't return the gesture. Kept walking. Didn't look back. When I reached the end of the hall and glanced over my shoulder, the store was empty. To keep sane, I talked to myself, recited the rules, muttered old songs, gave the mannequins names so they felt less sinister. Didn't help much, but it kept me busy. Then came the worst night. 3 a.m. I headed toward the toy store, as usual. The mall was completely silent. Not even the lights buzzed. I reached the window. The clown was gone. No grin, no plastic limbs. Just an empty shelf with a dust print where it used to sit. I froze, tried to rationalize. Maybe it got moved during the day. Maybe it fell. Then, a giggle right behind me. I turned slowly. It stood in the corridor, head tilted like it was studying me, arms hanging, fingers curled like hooks. That painted smile, too wide. It stepped forward. Tap. Another step. Tap. I didn't wait for more. I ran. No thoughts, just instinct. Legs moving before I even told them to. I tore past the carousel, past the food court, down the west wing, reached the loading dock, fumbled with the keys, hands shaken, keys rattling. Another giggle. Closer. I turned, 10 feet away, still smiling. I don't remember unlocking the door, just bursting into the lot, collapsing against cold concrete, desperate for air that didn't smell like bleach and death. Marvin stood by his car. "You saw it, didn't you?" he asked. I nodded, too shaken to speak. "You left before your shift ended," he said. "It was going to kill me," I managed. He didn't argue, just nodded. "Yeah, that's usually what happens when the clown moves." I didn't go back the next night, or the night after. I stayed away a full week, longest 7 days of my life. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that clown, head tilted, shoes twitching, heard the empty shelf calling me back. But the worst part, I missed it. The structure, the rules, the twisted logic. At Pine Shadows, you knew when to be afraid, when you could breathe. Real life didn't offer that. The money ran low. I rationed, skipped meals, sold my console, even my dad's old watch, the one thing I kept after the funeral. By day 7, the fridge was empty. Eviction notice taped to the door. That laminated card Marvin gave me still sat on the table. I hadn't looked at it again, but one line stuck with me. "If you hear any strange sounds, close your eyes and chant, 'We shall obey, we shall obey.'" What unsettled me wasn't the rule, it was what it implied. The strange sounds weren't a possibility, they were guaranteed. The rule wasn't just a precaution, it was a routine, scheduled. Like the thing behind it wasn't haunting the place, it was running it. I returned at 11:50 p.m., No call, no warning, just walked through the back door. Marvin was in the security office, sipping from a styrofoam cup. He didn't look surprised. He looked like he'd been waiting. "You ready to stop running?" he asked. "I'm not sure," I said. "But I'm broke." He nodded, pulled out another laminated card. This one had silver edges. Not gray, not white. Silver. Final protocols. Pine shadows. Mall. Night security. If the clown appears again, you have 2 minutes to exit the building. If the man on the carousel waves, wave back, then close your eyes and count to 10. Never speak to the cleaning woman. She's not real. If you receive a call from an unknown number between 2:22 and 2:44 a.m., hang up immediately and shut off your phone. Above all else, do not question the rules. Was the last line that stayed with me. Not just the words, but the tone, the urgency buried within them. Do not question the rules. Not can't. Not shouldn't. Do not. It felt personal, like the warning was aimed directly at me. Someone likely to start pulling at threads. That night is one I'll always remember. It began like the rest, same routes, locking up, scanning the monitors. But something was off. The air felt denser, heavier, like the mall itself was holding back something. The silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt aware. Around 1 a.m., I passed the food court again. The carousel stood still, horses frozen mid-motion. The place smelled of old popcorn and recycled air. The overhead lights buzzed and flickered. Then I heard it. A low, haunting hum. Not laughter this time, but something slower. Like a lullaby no one remembered the words to. I couldn't tell where it was coming from, but the atmosphere had changed. The mall no longer just seemed alive. It felt it. Down the hall I saw her. A woman sweeping near the janitor's closet. Her uniform was worn and faded. The name tag read Edna. She swept slowly, rhythmically, as she hummed to herself. I'd never seen her before. She moved toward the pretzel stand, still talking. Maybe to herself, maybe to the mop. It wasn't clear. I froze. There was a rule. Never speak to the cleaning woman. Then she looked at me, right at me, and said, "They never listen. Even the rules are part of the trap." I stopped breathing. I hadn't planned to respond. I didn't mean to, but something in me broke open. "What do you mean?" I asked. Her smile warped, not kindly, not human. It stretched beyond what a face should allow. Skin pulling tight, cheeks tearing at the edges, revealing sharp, unnatural teeth. Her eyes stayed fixed, never blinking. "They give you rules so you feel safe," she whispered. "But safety, that's the first lie." Then she lunged. I hit the ground hard, my breath knocked out. Her face hovered inches from mine. Her breath reeked of bleach, decay, and something electric, like broken speakers. I screamed, kicked. She hit the floor, like vapor, no weight, no form, just mist, gray and rising, curling toward the ceiling, like steam from scalded flesh. I didn't run for the exit. I ran to Marvin's office. I needed answers. I needed to make sense of it. But the office was empty. No Marvin, no lights, just the desk. The drawer was open, and inside was a folder. The folder, the one he must have given to others before me. It was full of photos, Polaroids, badge scans, camera snapshots. Every face had a name. Every name had a note. Gary broke Rule 5. Clown took him. Sam in East Wing at 12:22. Lost. Lena spoke to cleaning woman. Assimilated. Dan talked back, becoming aware. Then mine, at the bottom, in red, my name. Initiate protocol. Let him run. Let me run, like I was part of some test, or a process, or maybe just the setup to a joke no one gets to laugh at. I felt sick, because if they let me run, that meant they planned it, expected it, maybe even needed it. I grabbed the folder and ran, and this time, the mall didn't resist. The doors opened right away. No blocked lock, no clown, no echoing laughter, just the outside, just me and the cool night air. I didn't stop until I hit the main road, didn't stop until I saw headlights, pavement, a gas station lit by harsh, perfect fluorescent light. Now I'm here, in a diner. It's 3:14 a.m. I'm scribbling this down on napkins and receipts, eyes flicking to the door whenever the bell rings. Not because I think someone from Pine Shadows is coming, but because I believe something already has. There's a man sitting outside, gray hoodie, hood up, just staring. He hasn't moved in over half an hour. And the waitress, she keeps asking why I'm talking to myself. But I'm not. I'm speaking to her. The cleaning woman is standing behind the counter, still smiling. So let me end with this. Have you ever read something that didn't feel like a story at all? Just a disguised warning? If someone offers you a job at Pine Shadows Mall, don't take it. No matter how broke you are, no matter how bad it gets. Because once you clock in, you're not just working a job. You're signing a contract you'll never understand. And if you've already worked there, check your pocket. You might find a new card with your own set of rules. And next time, they might not let you leave.